everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Car Johnson. I'm the event coordinator for Green Apple. And tonight I'm really delighted to welcome Lawrence Lindell to celebrate Blackward. And yeah, that's right. You got it. Lawrence is joined tonight by Gaia WXYZ. Let's give a hand for both of them. I'm very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I will be very brief in my introduction so we can get on to the fun part of the evening. Just tell you a little bit about the artists joining us. First, Gaia WXYZ is a Black mixed-race non-binary multimedia artist, cartoonist, and musician currently living in Oakland, California. They received a Master of Fine Arts in Comics from CCA's MFA in Comics program and taught the first ever comic art class at UC Berkeley. They were included in the groundbreaking LGBTQ comics documentary, No Straight Lines, and their sci-fi autobiography, Comic Supercluster, is slated for release sometime in the near future. Let's give one more hand for Gaia WXYZ. And last but most certainly not least, Lawrence Lindell is an artist, musician, and educator from California who works in many artistic disciplines, including comics, music, illustration, and mixed media. He is the co-founder of Linnea House. Their graphic novel, Blackward, is the reason we are here tonight. Let's give one more hand for Lawrence Lindell. Thanks, folks.
Hi, thanks for coming out. Yes, I made a book called Blackward with Drawing Quarterly, and it's out in stores now, obviously. And yeah, thank you for joining me, guys. It's good to be here. Blackward is about everyone keeps calling them teens, but they're actually young adults, like 18, 19. And they start a club and search to be themselves. And it's just like a really joyous and fun book that has a lot of cartoons and things like that. And so I prepared a short reading of some of the book, and it's like a video with sound effects and things like that.
Girl, slow down. They ain't going nowhere. Dang, y'all. Leave me alone. But for real, you really are tired. Y'all right. It's time for cold deal. Now the deal. Yep, it's a deal. Hey now, meet back in 1 hour. That's thank you for the lunch. Gonna skip me home. What? You couldn't change it up a bit, but I changed the size. They yellow. So what now? What's up, Scott? First, dance at the field. It was a back to the more dance. Late night walk across. Finally running. Hard breaks.
Yeah. Yay! So you see, it's very silly and very fun, which is a bit different from the type of work I traditionally make, which is more like autobio, mental health stuff. And so it was kind of a joy to be able to just put like queer black joy on the page, and yeah. And here's the main characters. This is Lika, Amor, Lala, which is my favorite, and Tony. Guy. That's pretty much all I have. you want to jump into the
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations! Wow, yay! It's such a pleasure to be here. Do you think we can get the lights up now?
Yeah, totally.
I just want to really draw attention to the amazing character development and world building of this. Lawrence, when did you start drawing the section?
Yeah, the section was a webcomic I did in 2018. We're both in the same cohort for the MFA program and at CCA, and I started doing it on Instagram in 2018.
Yeah, so this was like, these characters didn't start with Blackward, they started with the section. And I think it's just so amazing that you've taken what was a webcomic and like adapted it for print. I think it's something that I was lucky enough to get an advanced copy. Woo! I've already read it twice. And I'm just struck by all the little details that you managed to pull from your life here in the Bay. And, I wanted to like really just honor that. Especially, I'm so glad that you read the moment where they dance at the Rio, because I was like, oh my god, that's El Rio, and we used to do that, like that was us. And so I don't know, it's just, as queer Black folks, how many books are there like this that we can like open up? And I mean, obviously it's a little different since we're personal friends, like see myself or see my experience, but like I'm just so excited for all of the young people and all of the adults too that are going to read this and be like, wow, finally somebody has adapted some aspect of my experience for the page,
Yeah, that's what I hope. It's not like, I hope they're not coming to the book and thinking it's about to be like really serious. Especially because if you're used to what I did before, you might think like, oh, this is going to be another one of those comics Lawrence digs into like mental health, and then it's like all this silly stuff, like taking lactate to eat ice cream and dancing at the Rio, and so I'm hoping that people come to it with an expectation of just fun and joy.
And maybe if they don't have that expectation, it's like a nice surprise as well. But I feel like there are some very quiet moments that do address the aspect of mental health with Lika specifically. I feel like when she's like, it's a good day. Today is a good day. So I mean, it's a very well-rounded book in that aspect. It's not all just like woohoo, ha 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 ha. There's like even a fight scene. Not to give away too many spoilers, but like Lala chooses violence, or she is willing to choose violence, which I love that about her. I'm so glad that you mentioned Lala was your favorite, because she was kind of my favorite too. I was a kid who like begged and pleaded to go to Hot Topic, and my parents were like, $50 for a pair of pants? Girl, it is 2003. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you can get one pair, and that's it, like, forever. So, like, that was really refreshing, too, seeing a Black goth going to the goth club and stuff. It's just so awesome. I'm so happy about this, and I'm so excited. Let's see, what else do I want to ask you? So what was the experience like going from self-publishing, because, Lawrence and his partner Brina have a publishing house together, literally like in the house, Linnea House. How was that experience of like printing your own stuff, having like full control, and then moving to Drawing Quarterly, which is like an outside publisher?
Yeah, I think for me it was a lot of learning how to trust the team that helped put the book together. So I had a great editor, but it was hard for me to not listen to what they had to say, but more to be like, well, I'll just put it all on me. And then they're like, I'm here to help you. Like, we're working together on something. So learning that, like, these folks aren't trying to take advantage of me, and they're trying to help me make the best book possible, was like a good experience, because I've been in some other experiences in comics and it hasn't been that way.
Yeah.
And so that's what me coming into making the book was kind of like on the edge of like, can I trust you?
Yeah.
Do you just want another Black story? And then once I got past that, I was like, oh, you really just love comics. And you just want to help me make the best comic possible. And so it's like refreshing. Yeah.
That's really good, because I know I've had experiences. I've never been published before by an actual like major publisher, but even in art school, having professors be like, your work would be so much more interesting if you dealt with your quote unquote ethnic issues. And it's like, what does that mean? Like, I want to tear my hair out because this old white guy is like, your ethnic issues. I'm actually like, it's your ethnic issues, dude. Like, not mine. You know, so I'm so pleased to hear that Drawn and Quarterly really lets you do your thing when it comes to that, because yeah, I mean, we're at a point in culture where there are Black stories out there, but there aren't necessarily Black queer stories out there, or if they are, they're often tragic in nature, you know? So I felt like that was something really beautiful about just the experience of reading this. Like, having a story be about Black queer characters and I'm laughing is like, I just want that all the time. So thank you. You're doing a service to the community with that work. And speaking of community service and community in general, Lawrence and I, we didn't actually meet in grad school. We met like a couple of months before grad school at the Black Comic Arts Festival. And it's so cool because in Blackward, and again, not too many spoilers, but there is a zine fest, right? And so I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about just like zine fests and comic conventions. And I mean, you're more of a zine fest kid, but yeah, just take it away. What do you got to say about zine fests?
Yeah, that was one of the notes I got from my editor. It was like, this could be anything. Why Zine Fest? I was like, no, it can't be anything. It has to be Zine Fest. But they're like, but why? And so that's like, while I was talking about the process of making this book, they asked all those questions that I wasn't even considering, which is what everyone says a good editor does. But experiencing it was like, okay, let me tell you why it needs to be a Zine Fest. And I can tell you because I've been going to Zine Fest for years and years, and all my community, even folks in comics, I met through Zine Fest first. So that's why it was important to like, it's like a reflection of my real life. What we live on a day-to-day basis. I try to put a little bit on the page, and yeah.
I think you did a little more than a little bit. You did a lot. There's so many beautiful references. Also, like Mr. Marcus, so cool. Like, I just love the fact that, you know, you're just tweaking the reality just a little bit, enough that, you know, it's your own. But at the same time, if somebody's reading this and they're from the Bay, they're gonna know, oh my God, that's Marcus Books. You know, oh my gosh, that's like, you know, the SF Zine Fest type situation. Like, it's just so cool to see your creativity come through in that way, but then also like draw on your life experience as well. So how did you decide to do Blackward? Like, what was that process like?
It's more tragic than the actual story, but we were planning for our first kid, and I was like, it's gonna sound weird because we don't make a lot of money in comics, but I was like, oh, we need some extra money, and I was like, well, let me pitch for another book. Again, I don't know why. Like, extra money comics doesn't make sense, but that's how it came about.
It's what we do. It's like, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to change directions now. Like, this is what I have to do. I have to get an advance for a book. That's the next step.
And so I was like, well, who would be a good fit? And I was like, oh, D&Q. They might like what I'm doing. And so I sent over all the comics that I did for the webcomic, and Peggy was like, oh yeah, I follow you. I like your work. Let me introduce you to Tracy, and if Tracy's a good fit as your editor, let's go forward with this. And so that's how Blackward came about. Yeah, so it was like out of necessity, but it became like this passion project. I kind of, it reminded me of why I love making comics, which is, it's good. It didn't feel like work, which is not always the case.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, comics is, you think you look at a page and you're like, oh, that's a nice page. That artist did 7 times the amount of work that you think went into making that page, probably. So it's quite a feat to do a full color comic like this and completely digital. There's a lot of hours on the screen. So so much of this book is about community care, and like, I love the scene where they go on the date night. Like, what are some things that you think are important about self-care that sort of played into that theme? Or community care too.
Yeah, I was trying to, so, you know, we all went through, well, still going through this pandemic, and I was trying to remember, as you said, like, oh, that's El Rio, we used to go, I was like, what did that feel like? And how can I put that on the page? And I was like, well, the homie has to take lactate to eat ice cream. I think that's hilarious. Like, that's something you don't think about, like, when you're eating ice cream, and the ice cream they're eating is it. So it's like these little things that are just they bring they bring me joy in real life, and I was like, well, let's see if I could translate that real life joy onto the page. And then from there it became like, oh, if I'm doing a zine fest, how could I not include all the people not only that influence me, but that do this, like, for real. Like,
that was such a fun page for me to look at. I'm sure that most people will see. It was like a 9-panel grid of different creators at the Zine Fest, and I was like, oh, that's Ben. Oh, that's Wit. Oh my God, is that Amy? Like, it's really a who's who. And, you know, sadly I did not make the cut, but, you know, it is what it is. There were only 9 panels, and I get to be here now. So yeah, I'm just so excited for this book to be out there in the world. I've already seen so many pictures online of the book in various bookstores, and so what are your plans with the book now? I mean, it exists, it's in the world, but like, you gotta market it and sell it and stuff. So like, does Drawing Quarterly have anything fun in the works for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing the tour.
Totally.
The reason I picked here is because we live in this neighborhood, and I'm very big on, if I live here, I should participate in the community I live in. And I mean, my kid gets her books from here. Like, it was important that it was here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll be in Albuquerque. We're doing like basically like a whole full-on book tour. I'll be in Berkeley at Pegasus and things like that. Yeah, I'm hoping to get to Montreal, but it's kind of expensive.
Yeah, international travel. Well, we're wishing the best of luck for that to happen, because I saw the window display they made for you too. That was gorgeous. Yeah. Let's see. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about when it comes to the book? I'm trying to like.
Yeah. So if you can't tell, I'm pretty awkward. Which is, the book is based on 4 characters that are like, it's called Blackward, Black and Awkward. I don't know. I'm hoping that I reach the people that I'm meant to reach, because I'm kind of going through this thing right now where it's like, I've been self-publishing for 10 years, but this is my first book with a publisher, so that's a different kind of monster. Whereas I'm looking at things that I've never looked at before, like, oh, how much before I earn out? How many comics do I have to sell to be able to do this? And like, so I'm hoping to like release that and go back to the intention of reaching the people that I was trying to reach, which is folks who just want to see queer black joy on the page. And that's not necessarily just black people. Like, people who just love joy, and I'm hoping to reach those folks.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome that you worked with Drawing Quarterly. They're responsible for some really awesome comics, and so the fact that you're added to that roster, it just means that, the people who are going to Zine Fest and the people who know about Linnea House are obviously going to support this, but what's really exciting is that people all over the country, all over the world who had never heard of you before are going to have access to your work, and I think that's one of the main reasons why we work with publishers, right? Like, there was nothing wrong with what you were doing before, but I think that what you decided to move into is gonna support and feed Linnea House too, because now more people will be like, oh, what else is this person responsible for making? And then they'll see all the other amazing stuff that you have done. And so I just feel so motivated to like do my part to like move this book out there. So I've already been showing it to my students and stuff, and I feel like there's just such a vast audience for it, really. So I'm just so happy. Like I didn't write down questions. I'm kicking it from the head. So I'm trying to think. I don't even know what time it is. Gosh, I'm a little bit scattered. A little bit awkward myself. It takes one to know one. Yeah. What's up? What else is on the horizon for you other than the book tour and stuff? Like, are you gonna do a Blackward too? Like, what's up?
No, I have a book. I'm doing my second book with Drawing Quarterly, but it's much different than this. It's a like memoir type thing, which is what people kind of know me for. I mean, y'all don't know me like that, but kind of know me for. So I'm excited about that. I have a book coming out that's a middle grade book next year. So I don't know. Right now, I'm trying to remove myself from like the idea of like I'm pushing Blackward. Like, I don't know. I know I have to sell the book, but I feel like in doing so, I'm like taking away from that joy I felt while making it, because I'm always focused on like I gotta make sure this does well. I gotta make sure this does well, and it feels weird to think about my work in that way because I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah, it's one of the joys and freedoms of self-publishing is like I make what I make. There is no royalty cap that I have to hit in order to start like earning those royalties and stuff, or like I don't have to make my advance, right? Like it's there and you create it. So I can certainly see how the pressures are different, but I feel like it's really good that you had that long self-publishing background because you aren't going to be so tied up in that. Your sense of self-worth isn't tied up in what, like, how many copies it sells, right? Because you already know you got people that love this work.
Yeah.
And wow, you got 3 books in the pipeline. Let's just give Lawrence a round of applause for going from like 0 to 4 in the course of like a couple of years. That is a wild accomplishment. So just rooting for you over here. Let's see, other questions. What was it like making a book while you had a baby in the house?
Yeah. That was difficult. I took parental leave in October, and then I started working on the book at the end of October, and then I finished the book in January. So it took 3 months to do the final book because I needed to get back to help.
Wait, you did the whole book in 3 months?
Yeah, so what you read is like the final. I did that in 3 months. I spent a year working on the thumbs and the draft with my editor, but the final stuff you see on the page is done in 3 months. It's not recommended. Don't ever work like that.
I'm having a panic attack just thinking about that, actually.
But it was just what needed to be done at the time. But yeah, I would get up at 8 in the morning and then go to bed at midnight.
And just be working.
Yeah, I would work every day so that I can meet the deadline. Don't ever work like that. I really mean that. But, you know, I had to do what I had to do. So when you read it, yeah, it was done in 3 months. The final stuff, not the preparation of writing it and all that stuff, but the final art was 3 months.
Yeah, when you first said 3 months, I like almost fell out of my chair. I was like, there is no way. That is not possible. But even still, like even having the whole thing drafted and mapped out, like sometimes it takes me a month to do a 10-page comic. You know what I mean? So that is just, wow. I am going to sing your praises from the tops of the trees to my students because that is just such an accomplishment. Yeah, I think it's so beautiful, too, that when Miela grows up, she's going to be like, wow, this book was made when I was just crawling around. You know, like it's such a, there's this cool intergenerational thing going on in reality, but then also in the book. And so maybe that's another thing we can talk about, like the importance of Mr. Marcus and the kids sort of like getting together, and even how he's like, they've been making zines since the Harlem Renaissance. Like, I loved that moment because it's so hard, or it has been hard as a black weirdo, feeling like you're the only one sometimes, you know, or like you and your friends are like the only ones, and how, what do you think about that? And yeah, let me not say too much so you can say something.
Yeah, it was intentional to name, he was always in the webcomic, but just as Marcus, but it was intentional to put Mr. Marcus, because culturally sometimes, like, I think about my elders, and like if I ever called them by their first name without the Mr., they'd be like, who are you talking to? And so it was just, I don't know, I was like, should I put that in there? I was like, yeah, it's authentic to what I grew up with, so it's like, oh, that's Mr. Marcus, even if he's just Marcus, you know. It was important to show a black elder in the aspect of, like, some of the people who supported me weren't always the people you thought would support me. Like, the things they were into, and like, what they believed, but they always showed up for me. Like, oh yeah, he's just doing that punk stuff, but we got him, you know, we're not going to just disregard him. And so I feel like Mr. Marcus is a reflection of, like, all those elders that I grew up with that, like, yeah, we didn't have a lot in common, but they made sure, like, to take care of me or nurture me, even if they didn't understand what I was doing. Kind of thing, yeah. Which is in the book, which he doesn't get what zines are, but he's like, well, I'll still support you anyway. Yeah.
As long as you help me.
Yeah.
There's so many fun little scenes and references. I hope that you all buy a copy tonight and get a chance to see it for yourself. I am thinking about another question for you. What would you say was the biggest challenge in making this book?
believing that I didn't put, it's gonna sound weird, but that I didn't put too much joy on the page. That was a note I said to my editor. Speaking of the Harlem Renaissance part, that was something I came up with after they were like, we need a little bit more. And I was like, well, let me put that in there as a backstory of zines and things. But I was telling them like, oh, I feel like I made it too joyful. I feel like because my style is so cartoony, people are gonna think it's like this kind of like buffoony, jokey thing, which is historically is like you don't want that as a black person making cartoons. And they just reassured me. Was like, no, you wanted to make a story about black joy, and you did that. Celebrate that, and you know, like they even say it might sound weird coming from your white editor, but like this is you did that. Like celebrate that. And so it was hard for me to get over like. I'm a cartoonist. I'm allowed to make cartoony things and it still be acceptable and like a form of what we do. Because I feel like sometimes even myself, I get caught up in aesthetic of like, oh, I need to draw this. So people could be like, no, that's a master cartoonist. And I'm like, well, that's not the art of cartooning.
Right.
Like, so like getting over that type of thing is like the hardest part.
There's so much to say about that in terms of like, I don't think that cartoonists who are white deal with the same anxiety around depicting the cartoony aesthetic, because for those of you who don't know, early cartooning was heavily drawing from minstrelsy. And so like as artists we're like, oh, I don't want to reproduce that, right? How can I portray black joy when historically that has been something that was actually used to oppress us by mocking us? And I think that is part of what is so powerful about this book, is that, your style is, the expressions are exaggerated and they change, and that's something I've always loved about your style. You were never somebody who was like, my character needs to look exactly the same in every panel. It's like, why do that? The whole point of cartooning is that we're drawing, we're having fun. And I think that it's being filtered through your lens, and you're such a radical-minded person just like naturally that like, that came through. And I think that maybe that is part of why it was good that you worked with an editor here, so that you could have that that outer perspective to be like, no, it's okay. Like, it makes sense that you have that anxiety because, again, it's something that we have to think about as we work. But the fact that you thought about it means that you accounted for it in the work, right? And so I didn't get any vibes of that as I read it. It was a lot more like, I was like, this is kind of like a Black queer South Park. Like that, even though that's not the best cartoon to like reference to because they were very offensive sometimes, but like just in terms of that level of just like silly, it's lighthearted. It's not meant to be something that you're like, I'm going through it, reading it. In fact,
yeah, I mean, you know, I grew up on SpongeBob, Rocko's Modern Life, and that type of thing. It was just like '90s cartoons, but then also we're big Peanuts family. And like, exactly. I don't know. It's just I feel like when you say comics, there's a certain expectation now. And sometimes I'm like, I just want to draw a little silly drawings. Like, yeah, I know how to draw. I went to school for years and years, but I just want to draw a little silly cartoons that people are like, oh, that's clever, or like, that's funny. And it's like, that's the brilliance of comics. It's like, it doesn't need to be this perfectly crafted panel for it to make sense. And I hope people, when they read the book, they kind of look like, oh, he was paying attention to what he was doing. It might not be a stuff that I'm used to or that I wanted to see, but like, let me check it out this way and like really read the comic as a comic. Because I've been doing a lot of interviews and everyone keeps asking me, so what's it like to work on a graphic novel? And they really just mean novel.
Graphic novel.
And I'm like, oh, it's comic. It's a comic. Like it's a long form comic, but it's still comics. Like there's a language we use, and it doesn't change just because I'm making a graphic novel. At least from my perspective, and they're like, oh, okay, but you're the author, illustrator. I'm like, yeah, you call me a cartoonist, it's okay, it's not a bad like word to call me a cartoonist, I'm okay with that, and, you know, like, yeah.
Yeah, we're reclaiming the silly guy in 2023. Yeah, we like to draw silly guys, it's fine, it's actually awesome, and more people should do it. That's so interesting to me that people keep trying to push this like graphic novel label on everything when it's like, that is a thing that exists, but not every comic that is longer than 200 pages is necessarily a graphic novel in that way. This one feels very episodic. You know, it feels kind of like almost like Lawrence's trade paperback collection of Blackward stories. I love that about it too, because it's something you can, you know, in this day and age with social media, people have a hard time sitting down and reading things through. This is definitely a book you can pick up, put down, read a little chapter. Okay, I'm gonna go to sleep now. Like it's just a really great companion to keep by you in these hard times. So thank you for making it. And let's see, thinking all the way back to 2018, like, tell me a little bit about, or, you know, tell the class a little bit about, like, what inspired the section, you know, like, what was the early motivations for creating these characters? Okay.
Well, class, Brino was setting up an art show in the Mission, and I was sitting there reading a comic called Bingo Love, and I was like, oh, I want to put Black queer joy on the page. That one's a little more intense than what I made, but that was the inspiration. And so I drew these 3 characters, and I started Instagram because it was free, and I would just do the page every day. I would color, ink, draw, write it, and post it while we were doing grad school, and people liked it, which I wasn't surprised that they liked it, but it was the way that they liked it. I was surprised. They're like, oh, I've never seen this on the page before. I was like, no, I think there's been others, but it was just like there's little access to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so people really gravitated towards it, and it became Blackward, which is in the book. Like, it was always in the section. Like, I wanted to call it the section, and John and Corey was like, I don't think that title will work to help sell the book. So it's like, this is the pinnacle point of the book, so call it Blackward. Yeah, so it was made in San Francisco. While I was watching my spouse hang up an art show in the Mission. And yeah, that's why it was important. Like me, I'm from Southern California. Reno's the Bay kid. But I live here, and the community that supported me while I was transitioning to my larger comics career is here. So it's very important to honor that community that kind of adopted me into this thriving scene that they already have here. And so I tried to put that in Blackward, as well as there's stuff from LA too, but you know, like the Bay took care of me, especially at a time where I really needed to be taken care of. And so I needed to put that in the book. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that, because I learned a little something about the origins of the section. You said that Lala is your favorite. Like, is there a reason why?
Because she just does what she, like you said, she don't need taking no shit. Like, it's so rare that we get to see a black character, a black woman character that's a lesbian, just do what they want on the page without the repercussions of, like, you're too sassy. It was like, it's not that. It's like she celebrated, like, yeah, you're supposed to do that. Like, he was talking, you know, handle that. And I just love to see, like, that's the type of folks I grew up around. And so I don't know like, all the queer folks I grew up around when I was younger, it wasn't like, you couldn't just pick on them. That was never the narrative I saw growing up. It was like, oh, you can't come around here talking like that.
They were not tender queers. No.
And so it was like, I need to put that on the page. And then I was like, oh, man, what if it turns the other way and it's like the angry black woman? Like, these are all the things I'm thinking about when drawing black characters. And like,
oh, it's such a mental gymnastics Olympics of juggling. It really is.
But I'm like, no, like, Lala's real, like the folks I know. So I want to put her on the page, and I like that she's just herself. She's my favorite. She wasn't even supposed to be in the book originally, and I made her. I was like, nah, she needs to be like main cast. Yeah.
Lala don't take no mess. Yeah, because she was like, yeah, these were the original 3. Lika, Tony, Amor.
Yeah.
And were you thinking about people when you made them up? Yeah.
Yeah, Amor is Brina and our other friend, Alan. Like, just the company.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
Lika is just me. Yeah. Tony's a bit of me, but Tony is also like a lot of my homies I grew up with that like to skate and things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I love Tony too. I love how he's so like confident in his little ways, you know, like, no, I don't need to put on lipstick. I don't need to be like y'all to be fabulous. You know, it's really sweet. I feel like there's room for identification with all the characters, which is also really awesome. Yeah. We good? Well, this has been such a lovely conversation. Thank you for answering all of my chaotic questions and just being an awesome human being in general. Do you want to plug for the YouTube? Do you want to plug where people can find this book and how they can find your work?
Yeah, I'm at Lawrence Lindell for everything. Should we have... Do y'all have any questions?
Oh yeah, we can do a Q&A.
I just have a comment. To speak to your point earlier, I don't know your work. I'm not black, I'm not queer, I'm really old. But Drawn and Quarterly, I buy a lot of stuff from them. So, you know, and I subscribe to their newsletters, their email newsletter. So I went, oh, well, this looks interesting. And I just bought it. You can sign it for me. So, you know, I read a lot of comics and graphic novels, and I don't necessarily categorize them, and I collect them. So this just looked attractive to me. But the fact that Drawn and Quarterly published it is what drew me to this. And I thought, oh, I'll just send a couple of neighborhoods over and come over tonight. So, yeah, I hope you will reach maybe a broader audience, because Drawn and Quarterly is like one of the best. So, yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
You approached them and they said, cool, so great.
Thanks for saying that, because that's always the fear. It's like, you know, I'm comfortable with my own little zine, and, you know, but like, this is, like you said, with so many people, and I'm always worried, like, am I opening myself up to something bad? Or, yeah, so just hearing that is like, oh, okay, this is, yeah.
Gonna go home and start reading it.
And we have a hand.
I'm curious, do your characters' voices go kind of quiet when you're finished with the project, or are these guys still running around in your head talking to you?
Yeah. So, technically they are, because, like, they're based on a lot of real people in my life. So I'm hearing, like, who I referenced them from, and I'm like, oh, that's not Amor, that's Brina talking. Like, you know, like, it's funny because it's like so close to how a lot of people in my life talk that like, that's what a lot of people were like saying, like, oh, I like how it sounds like an authentic voice. And like, oh yeah, because that's just how a lot of people I'm around speak. So yeah, like, it's cool. Lika, yeah, because that was kind of based on me, so, or the me I would kind of want to present to the world, if you will, like, yeah, trying to find that balance. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that does it for our Q&A. Thank you everyone for showing up tonight. Appreciate you. Thank you, Green Apple Books on the Park.
Yep.
Thank you, Brina, for managing the child as we discuss and have our little conversation. So yeah, thank you all so much.
Yay!
Can we give one more hand for Lawrence Lindell and Gaia WXYZ? Thank you both so much for joining us. This has been a real pleasure, and I'm so glad, Lawrence and Brina, to have you as neighbors, and that you let us celebrate your book with you. And Gaia, thank you for bringing your time and talent, and thank you all for joining us this evening. We have copies of Blackward at the front. You can find them there, and I think it's safe to say that Lawrence will sign them if you ask politely. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Yay!